If you fly micro drones, race gates can make it even more fun, especially if the gates have lights. I wanted some micro drone gates, so I looked around and was surprised by how expensive they are, especially for ones with lights. And a lot of them seem just a little too small for some of my friends to have fun flying through. This is a small series of videos showing how I built some LED light race gates for really cheap, starting around $4 for gates with single color LEDs, and starting under $6 for gates with RGB LEDs. There will be multiple videos showing different parts and variations of gates I designed and made. Here are the materials I used to build the base of these racing gates. The main beam across the bottom is made out of this wood dowel, 5/8 inch. It's about 3 feet long, and I cut it in half and can use it to make 2 gates. This wood dowel costs about $2.50 at Home Depot. Then I have this 3/8 inch dowel cut up and used as little pegs to mount the gate tubing onto. You only need really short segments of it, and one of these dowels can make quite a few gates. This dowel costs 98 cents. It ends up only costing a few cents per gate. The last of the material is this 1/4 inch dowel, costs 88 cents at Home Depot. I would use one dowel to make the legs for 2 gates. They don't need to be that long. You could cut it into thirds, you can cut it into quarters. I bet if you cut it into quarters it would still make the gate stand up fine, but initially I used it to make 2 legs for 1 gate. The other thing you might count as material is the glue I used. This is Loctite 60-second universal glue, and this is the package it came in. I had some of this laying around for a different project and thought, why not? It's fast because it's 60-second glue and it works on wood just fine. It's also really easy to work with. It gives you a little bit of time to reposition the parts. The downside is it doesn't actually dry in 60 seconds in the parts where it's thicker, filling in the holes, but it does fill in the holes well. I really liked it. I would just let the gate sit there for quite a while, maybe a few hours, to get the glue to dry completely. You're going to want to start with your square dowel. Now I'm using 5/8 inch dowel because it seemed like a good size, and I could have got material that was less expensive, but I would have had to do a lot more cutting. It would have made the pieces larger. I would have saved, I don't know, 50 cents per gate by going with stuff that would have required a huge amount more of work, and I wanted to get this done in a reasonable amount of time since I have a race coming up in a day. I need these gates done. This square dowel is 36 inches long. We need to cut it in half. So we just need to find 18 inches. Got my scratch awl. This is an 18-inch ruler. Mark it. Here's the 18-inch mark. Mark a line where to cut, and then you can use a hacksaw or any small saw. Doesn't matter. I happen to have a jigsaw, a small one. I'm going to use this. Now don't forget, you need to wear safety glasses whenever you use power tools. Don't say I didn't warn you. You'll need to remove the stickers from all the dowels, which actually is incredibly difficult. They use a kind of label that leaves sticky residue and the label breaks apart. I don't know why they do that on raw wood. So now you have pieces to make 2 gate bases. Next thing you need to do for the gate base is to take the 48-inch long piece of dowel. I just cut it in half. I got 24 inches each way, but you can do it any length you want. You can do it shorter than that. You don't have to do 48 inches. You just worked with 24. I think 1 foot, 12 inches is a little short. It'll work, but I want the gate really stable. I know people will be crashing into it at the race. I'm going to measure 24 inches. Gonna make a mark at 24. This does not need to be exact at all, just approximate. All this stuff can be very approximate and it'll still work fine. Now, I need to cut this in half. There's the mark in the middle. And now you have the legs, the stabilizer legs. Once again, you have to remove the same kind of terrible sticker from these legs. I found pulling very slowly and carefully and evenly is the best way, but sometimes that doesn't even do it. That one came off pretty well. This wood comes cut a little rough. It can possibly give you splinters. It's pretty smooth. It's still not quite as smooth as I would like it, and the ends are rough and they have splinters coming off. So I take a sanding block like this one. I just sand the entire piece, and I make sure to sand the end extra so that it's smooth and rounded. If it tapers just a little bit at the end, that makes it easier to insert into the hole you're going to be drilling in this piece later. I'm going to take all these pieces and sand them down so that they're really smooth and so that the end is tapered. You want to be careful. The sharp edges here, the sharp corners will catch on your block and tear it like this tore right here. You don't want to be pulling towards you until you get that really rounded. You also don't want to be pushing too hard. We're not sanding a lot off, we're just smoothing it out. All these pieces that I'm using, you don't have to use this size. This is 1/4 inch dowel, this is 5/8 inch square dowel, this is round dowel. I just picked these up at Home Depot last night. Just thought, oh, that size might work. If you want stiffer legs, you can make this larger, you can make this larger, you can make this smaller and save 5 cents per gate by going smaller. I wanted it stronger, so I decided 5 cents a gate for stronger pieces here are worth it. That's all nice and sanded, smooth everywhere. Shouldn't give splinters, at least I hope not. Now these legs are completely sanded and they're done. You could possibly paint them, but I wouldn't recommend that because if you paint them, they're probably not gonna slide into this base piece anymore. You could paint them if you're gonna make the hole in the base down here a little bit bigger. To keep it simple, I'm not gonna paint them. Now those are done. Next, I need to sand this piece. You can see it's rough on the edges and even these corners are kind of sharp. Now, if you sand this way, it will tear the block, but it will also pull bits of wood out away and it'll look really bad. I guess it doesn't really hurt anything, but to get rid of these frayed edges, you want to sand in this direction. I also want this all smooth so it doesn't hurt to move around or to use. I want it just nice and smooth and safe. Okay, that feels really good for that end. Now let's do this end. That's a little rough. Sand that down just a little bit to make it smooth. I really don't want to get splinters from this when I'm handling it. That end is a lot better than it was. Now I just need to sand everything down, especially get rid of the sharp corners. Yeah, that's feeling really nice. Yeah, that feels good. That feels nice. Almost done. It's all sanded and ready for the next step. Now, for those who are wondering or who care, this is a 180 grit sand block. It's also called extra fine, I believe. Basically, I only used it because it's the one I had laying around. You can use just about anything, doesn't matter. I like it though because the extra fine made this really smooth, but it does make sanding take longer. These pieces are all sanded, and that is the vast majority of the sanding you have to do. The next thing is we need to drill holes for these pieces to go through. That's a little tricky. These are 1/4 inch dowels, and that's a 1/4 inch drill bit. What I quickly learned is that 1/4 inch dowels are not actually round. They're kind of oval shaped because of the grain. It makes them cut not straight. On the widest part of the dowel, it's bigger than a 1/4 inch. So if you drill a 1/4 inch hole, you're not actually going to end up with a 1/4 inch. Well, you're not actually going to be able to get the dowel in. I drilled my first hole and I tried filing the hole and I tried sanding the dowel. Just a ton of work, not worth it. The solution I found was to go to the next size drill bit, which is 17/64. It's one size up, it's only slightly bigger. You can almost not even see a difference, but that made enough difference that these dowels could fit. They fit perfectly. They're just slightly snug so they don't slide out easily, or so they don't slide out when you don't want them to, but they'll pull out easily enough. What I want to do here, and it's not necessary, but I'm actually going to drill the 1/4 inch hole first. By drilling the 1/4 inch hole first, I put most of the wear and tear on the 1/4 inch drill bit, which is really common, really easy to get, and then the 17/64 drill bit will get worn less. I'll finish out the hole. It'll also make the hole better, straighter, more accurate by just removing a tiny bit later. That's not that important for what we're doing. It can be helpful in certain situations. In this situation, it doesn't really matter, but I do want to put most of the wear and tear on my 1/4 inch drill. So I'm going to drill that hole first. The 17/64, I'll drill that into the 1/4 inch hole. First though, I need to figure out where I'm going to have the holes. I want the holes as close to the bottom as possible without breaking through the bottom. And I want them in from the edge a little bit so there's plenty of strength over there, but I don't want it too far in because the wider it is, the more stable the base will be. What I'm going to do is measure. So if this is a 1/4 inch bit, if I'm going to put a mark where the center of the drill is going to go, I have to go half the distance of the drill bit, which is 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to measure 1/8 of an inch up, which is right there. And then I'm going to go up just a tiny bit more so that it's not quite at the bottom. The drill bit's going to be a little bit bigger than this 1/4 inch. Somewhere just right about there, slightly higher. I also want the hole to be, let's make it 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. So if it's 1/8 of an inch in, it needs to be another 1/8 of an inch to where the center of the drill is, so 1/4 of an inch in. That's actually right about where I want it. Maybe I'll do it in just a little bit further just so it's stronger over here. The hole is going to be right about here. That looks good. It's in far enough from the edge, close enough to the bottom. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I can use this center punch. Now the drill can get started easily. This is the 17/64. This is the 1/4 inch. I've misplaced the tool to tighten the drill bit. Finger tight it is. Once again, don't forget your safety glasses. It's good to clean off the old sawdust underneath where you're going to lay this down so that this isn't laying crooked, or, you know, if it's a little bit crooked, your hole won't go in straight. I'm laying it so there's a lot of this base underneath, so this lays very stable and flat. I check to make sure this is going to drill straight down where that mark is. Okay. Now I'm holding down very securely to make sure the wood doesn't move around while I'm drilling. And you want to go just small amounts. You want to press it down and pull out many times because the wood shavings will get caught in the bit and the bit won't work as well, and it'll cause more work for the machine or make the machine jam. Put it in a little bit, take it out to clear out all the wood shavings, and do that over and over. That's it. I'm all the way through. Clean this off. Okay, there's my hole. Now do it to the other side. We need to do what we just did with the measurement process. It needs to be 1/4 inch, a little more than a 1/4 inch from the edge. Put a little mark there, and then up from the bottom, probably about 3/8 of an inch. Will get you where you need to be. That'll put it really close to the bottom, but it shouldn't break through the bottom. It's best if you don't break through. If you do break through a little bit, that's okay, but don't just break it through the rest of the way or this won't stand up. You need wood underneath here to apply force when the gate leans so that this won't just come out the bottom. That looks like where I want it to be. And we'll take the center punch, mark it well. Now we're ready to drill again. First, make sure the drill's lined up in the spot where I want it. Put that back to where it's back here on this. That looks good. And And before you drill this, you probably want to double check after you've marked it that it is drilling on the same side of the dowel as the other hole, and that it's drilling toward the bottom of the dowel, just like this one. If it's toward the top, it's not going to do you a lot of good. If it's this way through, it's not going to do you much good. So you got to make sure it's along the bottom and on the same side as the other hole. And that's it. Then you should take your sanding block, just sand off above the holes because there's going to be wood splinters sticking up and can't really get rid of all of them. There's ways to get in there and deburr it, but for this project, I'm not going to worry about it. Maybe use the corner of the sanding block, just take off some of those burrs. And then with this side, take out those burrs, sand that. And now this piece is ready for the next step. Like I mentioned earlier, I did a 1/4 inch drill bit first. So now I'm switching to this 17/64. Once again, you can just do a 17/64. I just wanted to do less wear and tear on this drill bit. Now I'm ready to drill these holes. Once again, clean off the surface so that this lays flat. Now you could do all this drilling by hand with a hand drill, but I have a miniature drill press, so why not use it? It makes it a little easier. You could do it with a finger drill too. It's gonna be a little tricky to get it perfectly straight with a hand drill or a finger drill, but it's doable. One little trick, hold this very loosely as you're pulling this down, and it'll help center that hole. Okay, now I can hold it tight, but if I hold it a little loose, it can still move around as needed to center the hole. Okay, that's one hole done. Now that's not quite as close to the bottom as I would prefer, but it'll work well enough. Okay, clean that off again. Center this. That's centered. Okay, now drill it. That's it, I'm all the way through. Now take your sanding block, take a corner of it, just do this. That'll make these holes not have sharp edges or burrs. Nice. Those are done. Now, these pieces should slide in. Look at that. Perfect. Just going to check this side too. Oh yeah, it's snug. It's not gonna slide around on its own very easily. As long as you hold this piece right here, you can get this in and out pretty easily. If you hold back here, it's gonna really fight you. So you need to hold it up here to get it in and out. There we go. We're almost done. Now we need to drill a bigger hole in the top of these pieces to mount a little peg, and the peg is what the hose will mount onto. I haven't quite decided if it's better to put the peg at the very end or back a little. It's probably better the wider it is, but if you drill too deep, you'll go into this hole. That's not really a problem, except it might cause some burrs in the center that get down in the way of these pieces sliding through. I'll still do it near the end. So we need to find the middle of this. Let's see, the middle of 5/8 is going to be right about there. And then the distance from the edge, if it's 3/8, it needs to be more than 3/16 back. So let's just do it 3/8 back, and that gives it a little bit of room. Center between these sides, and then 3/8 back from this edge. We'll mark this side. Get the center of this, which is going to be here, and then we need it back 3/8. 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be right about here. Now we'll take this center punch, make that solid, make it an easy start for this drill. This is going to be harder to drill because this drill press does not fit a 3/8 inch drill bit. It's only designed to fit up to a 1/4 inch. I'm lucky that I can fit a 17/64 in here because it's only a tiny bit bigger. It still fits, but barely. For the 3/8 inch, I have to use a hand drill. Now I'm ready to drill the holes to put the pegs in that will hold the tube that has the LEDs in them. To drill these holes, I have to use a hand drill because this bit will not fit in this chuck. This is too big. Now, one thing worth noting, the dowel that I'm going to cut the pegs out of is 3/8 inch. This is also 3/8 inch drill. It's the biggest drill bit I have, so that's why I went with 3/8 inch dowel. This dowel, like the smaller dowels, is not actually round or perfectly round, so it ends up being bigger than this 3/8 inch drill bit. But I don't have to go to a bigger size drilling this by hand because my hand wiggles as I'm drilling and it makes the hole bigger. It's worked every time so far. Let's go ahead and try drilling this. You don't want to go too deep, don't want to press too hard. You don't want to go all the way down to where you're going into this hole. Since the drill wiggles around, you want to take it easy, go pretty slow. Well, I went too deep and I went into that hole. I need to clean the hole a little bit. I'll just use the drill bit to ream out this hole and get the broken pieces of wood out of it. That's the scary part of drilling directly over that hole. Went just a little too far. So I'm going to take the sanding block and make this hole smooth enough. I would probably recommend drilling a little ways back so you're not directly over that hole. So now, here's the dowel. It just needs to go in a little bit, just for some extra strength when gluing. Goes in 3/8 of an inch. That's enough. Just make sure, yep, that still fits in that hole fine. Now I'll drill this hole, and I'll try not to go as deep. I'm a little too close to the end, so it's breaking off some of the wood. Won't be a problem though. This will still work fine. I want it just a little bit deeper. That is probably deep enough. Dowel goes in almost as much as this hole, but it didn't break through. Clean up this hole. Clean up this end now. Broke away the wood, so I need to make this smoother so it doesn't have splinters. This is ready to glue the pegs in. Now we need to make the pegs. I'm currently actually making 2 of these at the same time during this video. At this point, they're going to have to be different. This is the one that I just did. I drilled the holes straight down, but this next one is going to have a longer strand of LED lights. Instead of the pegs going straight up, they actually need to go in at an angle. And this one I'll also drill at a little bit of an angle. I'll start it straight. And then go in at a little bit of an angle. This hole can go a little deeper. Now to clean this one out. Okay, that's good. And clean this one out. Now this one's ready. I already built a couple of these last night just to figure out how to do it. These pegs work, but they're a little bit too short. So I'm going to cut ones that are a little longer. These stick out about 1 inch. I probably want it to stick out 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna try that this time. Here's the 3/8 inch dowel. While it's here, I want to test fit. Oh yeah, that's great. Perfect. We use the knife to mark it. So if I want it to stick out 1.5 inches, I need to go a little bit longer. It's gonna go in the hole. So maybe I'll do 1 3/8 inches, or I'll sand it down. So let's go just a little more than 1 3/8 inches. Since I'm building 2 of them, I'm going to need 4 of these pegs. 1 3/8 inches, let's go just a little more. Those are all marked and ready to be cut. You do want to sand down the pegs, and it's easier to get most of the sanding out of the way before you cut it into the pegs. So while it's long like this, go ahead and sand it all down. Sand one of the ends down really well, round it a lot. You want it really rounded so that the tube can slip over it really easily. Safety glasses on. Okay, there's the first peg, and now, while it's easy to do, sand the rounded edge of the dowel before I cut the next one off. Now that's ready to cut. There's the mark. Line that up. And there's the 2 pegs I need. I'm gonna go ahead and cut 2 more. The bottom of the pegs need to be sanded just a little bit so that the splinters that are sticking out don't get in the way of putting it in the hole. Just a tiny bit of sanding, not nearly as much as the top. Get all of those splinters off, or at least get them to where they're underneath and not sticking out. So that one's good. And that one's good. Now, to give more room for the wires to come out of the tube when it's over the peg, I'm gonna take all the pegs and sand a big flat spot on one side. Easiest to hold like this, and this is the top part that's gonna stick out. This is 150 grit. It's rougher than the sounding block, but only a little bit. A little more. Those edges are a little bit sharp. Take the sanding block, make those not as sharp. Those are all rounded now. There's one peg. A little more. Now to round this one. That's it. 2 pegs are done. Now to glue in the pegs. These are the straight pegs and these are the diagonal ones. I'm going to be using this glue made by Loctite. It's just a universal glue. It's kind of like super glue, but has slightly different properties. It's more flexible. You're only supposed to put it on one surface. I'll put it around the base of this peg, get it all the way around. And then on the bottom, this glue is also nice because it's a gel. It stays where you put it. So I'll stick this in. Like that. Make sure it's fairly straight and out at an angle. Now I just leave that for a while. Do this peg, do the bottom, get it around the bottom too. Wiggle it around to spread it, press it in. And now leave that for a while. Now with this one, same thing. Keep the pegs more vertical, but it wouldn't hurt to lean them out just a little bit. Depending on how you want to do it, you want that flat spot either on the inside or the outside. I don't think you want it to the side. I'm doing them to the inside. And this peg, make sure you have the more rounded side of the peg up, sticking out. There's that one, angled out just a little bit. Add a little glue. There's kind of a gap in the flat side, so I'll put a little glue down in there. And that's it. Just have to let these dry, and then these pieces are completely done, unless you want to paint them. You can paint them as long as you cover up the holes where the smaller dowels go in. I was thinking about possibly painting these with glow-in-the-dark paint. I think that could look good, or a neon paint with glow-in-the-dark over it. I may just leave them raw for a while. Make sure to watch part 2, which will be about making the LED hoop for the gate. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.